search of someone else. If we try too much to count and name every sensation that we feel, the meditation will be dry and not sustainable. But when we allow ourselves to accept that the life we are in the middle of living is more like a living system, an ecosystem, in our care, then we could begin. We could be beginners. Being a beginner could be fun. Beginners at listening. And she says that on a guided meditation that she calls the ecosystem meditation. This is how I like to approach this topic of dependent origination as the ecosystem that we are living in. How mind and body work and how things arise from a cause. And this is the talk, the sutta tonight will be the Upanisa Sutta, which is dependent origination, but not only paticca samuppada, but also the way out of this, because paticca samuppada, as I said earlier, is related to the first and the second noble truths, which is good to know. But the third and the fourth noble truths, the release from dukkha and the path to go in that direction, this is what we're really interested in. And then the Buddha says, I say that it is by knowing and seeing, monks, that the mental distractions become still, not by not knowing and not seeing. Knowing and seeing what? This is matter. This is matter arising. This is matter passing away. These are felt experiences. These are felt experiences arising. These are felt experiences passing away. These are perceptions. These are perceptions arising. These are perceptions passing away. These are mental activities. These are mental activities arising. These are mental activities passing away. This is consciousness. This is consciousness arising, and this is consciousness passing away. Knowing and seeing in this way, monks, there is the stilling of the distractions, the Āsasvakkhāya. And now, I think it's really interesting that the Buddha begins with the five aggregates, and basically he often did that to start with understanding the anicca sanya, basically. How these components of our reality are completely impermanent. They're in a flow, in a flux, and that we tend to cling to them. I used to be a canoeer, and I used to paddle down whitewater rivers, swift waters, and I had like all kinds of training in swiftwater rescue and all that, and we used to go out in big waters. And one day we convened. I used to live in a cottage in Saint-Raymond-de-Portneuf in the backwoods of Quebec City, and my friends and I just gathered one day, and we decided we wanted to paddle a really intense section of a specific river, the Rouge River. It's funny to mix the two languages, but so it was like a pretty intense canyon where there's a couple, at least 3 or 4 class 4 rapids, and it's kind of a serious undertaking, and we were young and reckless, and we kind of liked the challenge. And so we just decided to go one day, maybe 6 months later, and we just gathered at a restaurant, and our friend who was a raft guide at that time on that river just drew the map of the river on a little napkin at the restaurant and saying like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and like this is this and that. And we were quite intimidated because it was really rainy that week, and so there was a lot of water going down the river. And it was a question of, is it really actually doable to go out there? Because usually that river sees roughly 30 cubic meters per second, and it was at roughly 250. So it was kind of a suicide mission, but not very smart. Really not that smart, actually. Even the rafts were not going in there. And my two friends were in sealed kayaks, like river kayaks, and I was the only one in a small whitewater river canoe, which was open. And so for those of you who kind of know this, that's a little bit more difficult even. And it's like being on a cork on top of the water, just, you know. It's like so, but I would, you know, these were the days where I was just looking for these kinds of challenges to go for, and maybe a bit of wisdom at the same time. And we decided to go. We started paddling down the first bit of the river, and it was crazy. It was really, really intense. What was supposed to be just white water was just like big rolling pyramids. And we got to the first class 4 rapid, which was the kind of the last trial before the canyon, and that was going to be the test, because if we could go down that one, then we could maybe think about the rest. And it was just really, really intense, like so much water like pushing through, like 250 cubic meters per second is a lot of water. And my friends went in with their kayaks and they got tossed around, and I went in and I got completely smashed and went underwater and was ripped out of my canoe and came out the other end and went on the bank, and we decided to go for the canyon anyways. So that's to tell you my wisdom at that point. And so we were just like drawing the map in the sand again and saying like, okay, so this is like, okay, the first rapid is the chainsaw blade, and the second rapid, which is the first rapid of the canyon, is called the washing machine, class 4. And it's a class 4 when there's 30 cubic meters per second. So I'll let you imagine when it's 250. And so we just decide to go. I take a little bit my breath, and we just go. I barely make it to the chainsaw blades, and I just flip. And so there was, before we discussed this, we were all, you know, whitewater rescuers. We had like level 3 training, and we knew that once you're in the canyon, there's no way out. You have to go down the canyon, basically. So what that meant at that point was that, well, I was out of my canoe and swimming, and that's not very efficient in that kind of water. And the last eddy, just before the canyon, my friend was waiting like in his kayak, just on the other side of the line where the current is, and you kind of have to like punch through that line and make it to the other side, and then you just do this fancy roll and all that. And that was my last chance to kind of go out, and obviously I didn't make it. So, and then he just saw me with like, gave me this kind of like last look, and just like pity in his eyes. And I was like, okay, I'm just drifting away. And there you go. I'm swimming in the washing machine. So first thing I know, I turn around, and this is happening really quickly. I just saw this line basically in front of me, and that's it. That's the line. The water goes down, and then I just go in, and it's pretty much a waterfall. fortunately, my life jacket wasn't that big, and in these situations, you don't want to be recycling in the waterfall, so that's a problem. So usually that can happen, but thankfully I'm a big person, and my life jacket was really small, so I just went way down. And that's actually what you want to do in that case. You go in the vein, in the bottom vein, and you just flush out, basically. So I'm just being propelled in this void and pushed way down, and it becomes like pitch black completely and really, really, really quiet. And my body is just like a rag doll, basically. I'm just being spun and turned around in every direction. And at that point, I'm just hoping not to hit any boulders or anything, or what, I don't even know what this river looks like because I'm at the bottom of it. And there's no chance of swimming in this kind of situation. It's completely hopeless. You just like better like just do nothing. Does that sound familiar? This is where we're catching up to meditation practice. So yes, it is related to meditation. I'm going there. And so it's more about, at that point, about accepting. Because there's just like obviously nothing you can do against that much water like pushing through a river, and you're just at the bottom of it. And so basically what you want to do is to just relax as much as you can. And I've heard a few people say that on interviews, just it was related to another kind of activity, but mainly just it was about getting out of the way and not even spending any little bit of energy trying to fight against anything. So it's complete letting go. And that was kind of what I was experiencing at the beginning. My mind was racing because you're like thinking, well, okay, how long am I going to be down here? And I don't know if you've spent any time underwater, but seconds feel like hours. And when you're thinking a lot, it just amplifies the whole thing. It's really making it way, way worse. And soon you just also realize that, okay, like this, like there's nothing I can do. And even panicking and thinking is already way too much. I'm losing a lot of energy just doing that. And it's the same thing in the deeper meditation. You're just learning that even the smallest little bits of movements of the mind are actually causing friction in the mind a little bit. And that's kind of making it a little bit troublesome. And so very quickly, I started to really let go. Okay, so that was part of our training as well in Swiftwater Rescue. You learn that basically if you try to fight the river, it's a battle lost from the beginning. So you better just go with it and save your energy until when you actually can do something, when you come up and actually have a chance at swimming somewhere. But other than that, you just go with it. And time passes, and I feel like it's getting lighter, and I feel like my surroundings, there's a little bit more light, and I feel, oh, wow, I'm emerging, so I might see what's going on. And then I'm pretty much out of breath at that point, and I emerge, and it's splish splash, and I'm trying to gasp for air and kind of get like a mixed water and air in. But it feels better than nothing. Then I turn around, and then there's another lip. and so, well, here it goes again. And then I go back in, and I'm already quite weak at that point. I'm already, kind of accepting that this is, and I know that this is a canyon that is probably 3-ish kilometers, 4 kilometers. So I know that this is a fairly long section, and I know that I'm not sure the speed I'm going to, but I'm not sure where I am in that whole thing. And so basically there's very little hope in my mind at that point. And as I go back in, I'm already beaten up, and I'm just at, phase 2 of letting go, basically, where it becomes black again, and I go really way deep in the river, go to that bottom vein, and fortunately, that's what happens. I'm not hitting any boulders or anything, so I'm very fortunate in my misfortune. But at this point, I'm starting to really let go, really completely let go of everything, of all of my thinking. I can't even bring it up anymore. There's no more energy in my mind. If I'm thinking, it makes it worse. I want to breathe more. I have to shut everything down and just feel and just be, basically. And that's what really happened for the next little while, as my consciousness kind of starts to withdraw because there's no more oxygen. I'm completely exhausted, and I'm just feeling the water rushing everywhere around me. And at that point, there's nothing else in my experience. There's no thinking. There's not even me thinking about getting out of there. There's nothing in my mind going on. Only the feeling as the feeling, the experiencing as the experiencing, the perceived as the perceived, with absolutely nothing added upon it. Because I just couldn't even allow myself to do that at that point. And so this experience really stuck with me for a long time, because I think when the Buddha brings up this recollection of meditation on impermanence and how to see the flow of our experience in as a transient thing, as a thing that is just arising and passing away, then we're actually letting go. We're actually aware, and we're present. And it's another way that he had to describe how presence of mind is experienced, is that once you let go, once you release, once you relax, you see that everything flows by. It's when we cling that we think that things are really substantial, that it really matters, and things like that. We take things personal. But when we let go, when we release, we realize that reality is just a constant flow of things. And so from then on, it kind of became a meditation for me as well. Sometimes I just remember this, just the water flowing through, and not like bodily sensations are felt, but nothing is added upon it. And at that time, even though that was not really the wise way to attain that state, it still brought me there. So sometimes life kind of gives you these really, really intense situations where you really have to completely let go. And it's a really beautiful teaching. It's a beautiful way of bringing us there in a certain way. Now, fortunately, there's the Buddha's teaching who's showing the way how to get there, but with discernment and wisdom, and how, with right effort, how to get to this place where there's so much freedom. We're not prisoners of our own minds anymore, and we're actually just witnessing freely our experience. So basically, I came up, and I was really, in the bottom, I kind of let go. I just thought, this is it. I don't know what's happening anymore, and I had no strength left in my body anymore to do anything. So it was just completely up to life to do whatever it wanted. But I came up slowly, and my feet started to feel some rocks at the bottom, and the water kind of became shallower, and to the point where, one of my friends came with his kayak, and he was saying, like, just grab my rope, I couldn't even lift my arms. So I just kind of tried to hold on to whatever I could, and he just brought me close enough to the shore so I could just like lay there safely. And I was just useless, basically. I couldn't even lift my body or do anything for at least 20 minutes. But yeah, so I was fine. But I definitely, I let go of a lot. And when I just was laying there on the shore, there was just like really nothing in my mind. It was completely clear, even though, as I said, that's not really smart. I really don't recommend this practice. Please just don't do it. But so it was just one of the experiences in my life where it brought me to this place of kind of a samadhi, if you may say, but it was forced. It was forced upon me. So I didn't really know how to get back there, and it's not really like I really understood at that point what it meant or anything. But looking back, I just really think this experience was interesting because it does resonate a lot when you really let go of everything so deeply, even of your own, struggle, and, your own life is not even in your own hands anymore. It's not even your own decisions. And then the mind just becomes so clear. There's nothing in the mind anymore. And it just stands there because there's nowhere else to go. There's no more desire. There's no more anything. So, that being said, that's my little story. And the sutta tonight is kind of breaking down the compactness of our experience and showing us the inner workings of what is happening for us. How do distractions arise in the mind? And how we condition our minds in that way, and how to break free from that. So slowly it begins from, this sutta is particular because it starts with the end, and then it goes reverse order, basically. It goes back. And so the Buddha says, "But monks, I say, in this stillness, the experience of what that stilling comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for the experience of this stillness? Release should be said." So now here, what I wanted to do was this is my own translation, so we can go through what the classic words are as well, and you can grab your pen and write it down if you'd like. If you'd like to have a comparison, a place of comparison. And so this experience of stillness, the stilling of the mind, this is the Āsasvakkhāya, and this is sometimes translated as the destruction of the taints. But for me, the asavas are, as I mentioned, from the root shru, which means to flow. And that's another interesting statement about the mind. And asava is either incoming or outgoing. There's a scholarly debate about that. We're not going to go into that. But personally, I think it's really relevant to see it in regards to stillness, because when these things that flows, these effluents, when that becomes still, then we can actually see the moving nature of our experience. Then we can actually start to see the impermanence. But as long as the mind is not still, it's like driving a car on the highway. Can you see the little caterpillars that are like hanging on the tip of a blade grass? It's like you can't, because you're going so fast. But when you're still, when you're calm, then you're able to see how things move, and there's actually things happening. It's subtle, but the mind needs to be still. And so this release comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for release? And now this is your turn. Ooh. Caught you by surprise. Sorry?
Is it cheating to read the paper?
Yeah, well, I think it's not so much. You can, because it's there's a whole bunch of things on this. So if you can figure it out, then it's already good. This is viraga, freedom from agitation. What is the cause for freedom from agitation? Discernment. Yes, this is Yathā-bhūta-ñāna-dassana. So seeing and knowing things as they really are. This discernment should be answered, but this discernment comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for discernment? And now we're getting into the 7 supports of awakening. Samadhi, yes, mental collectedness.
No. You made a. I noticed that in Yathā-bhūta-ñāna-dassana, you did a slash upekkha, so you have the knowledge and vision of things as they really are. Slash upekkha. Are you, in your experience, do you think those two things, or have you noticed those two things sort of arising together?
Yeah, really, it's all really talking about the same things. That's why I really like to put emphasis on being flexible with the Buddha's teaching and the Pali terms, because what's happened over the years is that there are some terms that we've attached meaning to some terms which have become, crystallized, and you can't, that's what that word means, But there is so much that the Buddha offers in terms of perspectives, and Yathā-bhūta-ñāna-dassana is exactly at the same place as upekkha, and then it's also a synonym of discernment, because it's Yathā-bhūta-ñāna-dassana. It's like seeing things for what they are, discerning that, and this is also a synonym for for the Satipatthanas. So what is the place where we find seeing body as body, sensations as sensations, mind as mind, Dhamma as Dhamma, seeing things for what they are. That's what that means. So the Buddha's depth of understanding is quite profound. So to just like say that one term means exactly one thing is just, it's actually kind of dangerous, because these Pali terms mean so many things at the same time, and we have to remain flexible with these things. So what is the cause for mental collectedness? Sukha, yes, happiness or ease. But this happiness comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for happiness? Pasadi, yes, calm should be answered. I like the muttering. But this calm comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for calm? Joy, yes, joy should be answered. But this joy comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for joy? Oh, that one is harder to see, isn't it? Yeah, relief, Pāmojja. Yes. And this relief comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for relief? Confidence, yes. But this confidence, and now this is where it gets interesting. I find it a little bit intricate to explain all this the reverse order. But the forward order will come right after, and we'll dive deeper into the explanation of all this, because going like this, it's kind of like backwards. So I prefer to keep that section to make you work a little bit to find it on the sheet, and then we'll go through the whole thing and explain it. Yes?
Oh, I have a question.
Yes?
Could you explain your thinking and understanding of translating Pāmojja as relief?
Yeah. Well, basically, it's been translated as gladness or relief because, so basically, there's mainly two parts of the suttas where you find this arising of the sequence that I call natural collectedness, Dhamma Samādhi. And it's either in the Samāññapala Sutta, the fruits of the meditative life, and then the Buddha explains the simile for the hindrances as, the dart, the illness, the slavery, basically being freed from slavery when one abandons the hindrances, being freed from slavery, being freed from debt, having come upon an oasis in the desert. What are the other ones?
Being free from jail.
Being free from jail, yes. And all of these have this really kind of tangible taste of, like relief. And that's what it feels to abandon the hindrances, is that there's this relief that arises and we just feel glad, basically. And I like the word relief for that specific circumstance. And then we have all the suttas where the Buddha explains the Buddha Anusati, the recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the virtue, generosity, and the Devas, basically. The Mahanama Sutta or the Uposatha Sutta, which was an advice given to lay people like most of the time, how to remember the good qualities of the Buddha, the good qualities of the Dhamma, of the Sangha, and your own generosity, remembering times when you were generous. And, these recollections is very much like the spiritual friend, I find. The Sangha, recollecting the Sangha, well, it can be someone in the Sangha too. And it can be, now you're thinking, take me as an, no. Like anybody. But it's really close. That's what I mean. I don't want to. Your talk this morning was really good on that point. What is Sangha and all that. And then when the mind recollects the good qualities of these things, like the virtues also, and the generosity, the faculties of the devas are just like yours, basically. You're developing the same faculties. That's uplifting the mind, and it's gladdening the mind. So gladness arises. And that's when I'll use the word gladness, not so much relief. So that's just the only nuance that I bring to that. So here, there's no mention of either, but because what is the cause, not what we were in, relief. So what is the cause of relief? Saddha. Yeah, so saddha, confidence. But this confidence comes from a cause, and I have to backtrack to the other one to actually give an explanation that holds itself together. And what is the cause for confidence? And now you have to check the other page. Now you're wondering what's that picture doing there? Dukkha, yes, dukkha, trouble. And so when someone experiences dukkha to a certain level where confidence arises, someone thinks, I want to get out of that trouble, I want to get out of that suffering, whatever word you want to use for dukkha, basically. Then there is the encountering of the path, and of course, saddha can meaning the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, and being uplifted, being gladdened, but also there is a connotation of finally having come upon that path, finally coming upon. It's not that the word gladness doesn't work. That's not my point here. It does work too, but it's just for this particular sequence, I just chose relief. So what is the cause of trouble? Now here we have blind actions should be answered. And this is jati. And why do I say blind actions? Here is quite close to Bhante Viññāna's take on it. He said this is the birth of action. But the birth of action is one thing, and blind action that is based upon just an automatic response, like a reaction to something, because we're just conditioned like that, that's a little bit closer to creating us problems, right? So it's not really mindful, and it's just reactionary. It's not thoughtful, and that can definitely put us in trouble, like, deciding to go down the Class 4 canyon. Just because that's your mental inclination. Really? So these blind actions come from a cause. They are not independent. And by the way, the birth of action that Bhante Viññāna put forward, I thought that was really, really smart of him, I think, to think like that, and to the dependent origination that he offered was really quite profound in many ways. But these blind actions come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause of blind actions? Yeah, now you know this one. Habitual tendencies. Now we're back into Bhante's vocabulary. Habit patterns, habitual tendencies, things that we've just built upon us in our psyche, and now it's the operating system. But these habitual tendencies come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause of habitual tendencies? Now I need to follow with you because, attachments, yes, and this is usually clinging. So habitual tendencies in the classical terminology would be bhava, or becoming, being, existence, existing. I try to move away from these terms because it sounds really nihilistic when you go the cessation way. The cessation of being. Anyways, some people have a hard time with that. And it's not as applicable as habitual tendencies, which is directly here and now. But these attachments come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause for attachments? Wanting, craving, that is the craving here, I like the word wanting because it's just a little bit closer to our day-to-day reality. I feel when I have the word craving in my mind, I see like somebody's huge eyes and like drooling over like some kind of window, or like in a shop or something. I don't know, like actually there was a time just before I just shaved my hair and just decided to go forth before I didn't even knew how it was done. There was this huge banner on top of a grocery store, and it was saying like, crave more. And I was like, that's it. I'm out of here, guys. Like, this is it. Like, so this is when the Dhamma was starting to hit hard in my life, and that was like, a big motivation. We call it samvega, that urgency to go forth. But this wanting comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause for wanting? So, what do we want? Well, and pleasure happens where? At the six sense bases. So the six senses are the basis for, I guess now it's felt experiences, experiences. And so whatever we want is based upon pleasure or moving away from pain, basically. That's wanting or pushing away. But pushing away is just wanting something not to be. So it's still wanting. It's the same thing. But all felt experiences come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause for all felt experiences? Sensory contact should be answered, yes. But this sensory contact comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause of sensory contact? The six senses. But these six senses come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause for the six senses? So yes, Nāmarūpa, mind and body. Without mind and body, there cannot be any senses. But this mind and body come from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause of mind and body? Consciousness should be answered. But this consciousness comes from a cause. It is not independent. What is the cause of consciousness? Mental activities, sankharas, and these are formations. Sometimes, the classical terminology for that is formations or volitional formations. For me, I banged my head on that term for years. I was like, volitional formations. What does that even mean? I don't understand. But I mean, I kind of understand now how it could work. But for me, and mental activities only covers the word sankhāra in certain aspects, not all aspects. So, and the word sankhāra is like the word Dhamma. It's one of these terms that are like literally impossible to translate with one word in English. This is used in too many ways. But these mental activities come from a cause. They are not independent. What is the cause of mental activities? Lack of discernment. Yeah, at the very bottom there that's the root of all things. That's the ground that brings all of this into becoming, into being. And now, starting from the ground up. And by the way, this is called usually avijja, lack of discernment, is called ignorance usually. I offered that a few discourses, and people usually have a hard time being called ignorant. So with due reason. I think it's not a very popular way of approaching things, and I really do understand. And actually, it kind of brought me to kind of try to understand it in a different way. And what came out was mostly like, this is simply lacking discernment, lacking awareness, and lacking knowledge of how things work. So now nobody's ignorant anymore. Isn't that beautiful? But there's a little lack of discernment sometimes. Yeah. Hopefully I'm doing better today. I would definitely get the label ignorant for my performances in the canoe world. But hey, that I'm going to use that a little bit later to speak about an actual link in all of this, actually. So lack of discernment brings about mental activities. So how does that work? Well, so when we don't know the Dhamma, when we don't know the nature of wholesome mental states and unwholesome mental states, how to understand and work with the right effort, understanding the path, understanding the 6 R's, the Brahma Viharas, and the way to move out. I don't know if it's something that you can remember, if you can call that to mind. How was your mind before you encountered the Dhamma? That's about right. Yeah, a complete mess. Well, that was me, and like doing the things that I was doing. I can just briefly recall and just like trying to look for happiness in the senses all the time, and starting with what, like, oh, this is fun paddling a canoe like on the lake, and it's kind of boring after a while, so you just want to go down a river because it's more intense and you get more feeling out of it, because now the feeling that you got on the lake is not strong enough and you want more, because that's how sensory pleasures work. You get really used to it and then you want more. And then, well, class 1 rapid is like, well, I've done a lot of those, so kind of, it's fun, but it's okay now, I can do that. And then you want class 2, and then you want class 3, and then you're like, okay. And then I was like, going off waterfalls and like thinking, oh, well, that wasn't risky enough, it wasn't. And every time you need more, and for me, it resulted in doing all of these extreme sports like climbing and whitewater canoeing, and putting my life on the line in all of these sports, and then realizing, this is not going to end. Well, I mean, or it's going to end, but whenever that's going to come. But, and I like that story because that is really how I got to get to that point where I realized, I'm always going to want more out of this. And this is true this is not just true for my own story, but it's always true for all of the sense pleasures, basically. It's a bottomless pit. You're never going to be satisfied. Never. It's never going to be satisfactory. And the thing is, well, sometimes we can be a little too pushbacky kind of thing. It's like at the beginning, when I started understanding that, then I became really dry. I was like, no, I can't touch, I can't have, can't have anything. And then it was going the other way, the ascetic way. Which that was really, when we talk about the middle way in the Buddha's awakening, that was exactly that. It was extreme indulgence in sensory pleasures, or extreme ascetic practices. We call them tapas. So you would basically go through extreme suffering in your body, or extreme fasting for the Jains, for example, and that's how you would purify your karma. And that's how you purify your mind. And the trick is that it kind of works in some ways, but it's, I don't know if you've tried it, but it's pretty painful, and the Buddha says it's ignoble, it's not virtuous. In the end, it's not really inspiring, and it's not really leading to liberation totally in the end. But a lot of people get caught in that too, because it has a kind of a purification kind of taste to it, but it doesn't lead to, it's not the path. So the middle way is really, yes?
Be a lot of pridefulness in it.
Pridefulness.
Yeah, like I really starve myself more than anybody else. Whatever it is.
Yeah, Antra, yeah.
Well, I think in the Sutta, when Buddha talked about his own discovery of the ascetic life, he went to the point of just taking 1 grain of rice, and he realized there's no end to that path either.
Yes, exactly.
Just like with the sense pleasures. There's no end.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good. Yeah, and he said any ascetic or Brahmin that push these ascetic practices to the limit, they have not gone beyond this. This is the end. Because he was just skin and bones at that point, and he said when he was trying to touch his belly, he would touch his spine basically, and when he would try to touch his spine, he would touch his belly. So that's how thin he was, and he was like black and all veins, and so he thought, if somebody's done that, like this, like next step is death. Yeah. So there's nothing more, so. And this was, but see, again, he had to go through these experiences to understand the middle way and how important that was. In the middle way, sometimes, people say like, am I going to buy a BMW or Mercedes? How do you say that? Mercedes, yeah. It's a little bit different than French. Okay. And it's like, oh, I'll go for a Tesla. It's like the middle way. It's like, not really. That's not the middle way. It's like, so we got all these funky things that have grown around the Buddha's teaching that are now being used. It's like, I'll take the middle way, but it's like, that's not really, that's not really the middle way. That's not what is meant here. So lacking discernment. So this is very profound. Of course, these mental activities, they are supported by us not really understanding this whole process to the deepest level. And these sankharas, these mental activities, are also these mental conditionings. So basically, this is like the operating system of the mind, basically, the OS of our psyche. And at this point, it is simply upheld by our lacking of discernment to the deepest level. And this, remember, dependent origination is a sliding scale. It's not just one thing that is like, oh, you're lacking discernment, then for sure you have like all this chain happening like really strong. There is different degrees of volume and intensity in there. So as you're practicing, you're making this chain a lot lighter, and your mind is getting uplifted and a lot lighter. So the mental activities, the conditionings of the mind are also going to be a lot lighter. They're going to be a lot more skillful. Like when you're practicing to develop the loving kindness, you're basically installing a new software, a new program that you're going to run. That's going to be the first thing that you're going to be reacting with, instead of like, oh, I don't like you. Go say something stupid. And then instead you'll be like, oh, you're suffering. I feel for you. And then that's it. And so the mental activities at that point, we're not all completely ignorant and we have like all the worst mental activities. It's just that as we purify also, this gets lighter also. And so the mental activities bring about consciousness. And this is a really interesting and profound level of dependent origination where, and that's why I put these two pictures there, is that in one way we can see Sankhāras, these mental activities, as the seeds in our consciousness. They work in both ways. So they work as like dormant seeds or as active principles also. And whenever the right causes and conditions are triggered, then these activities will be triggered as well. And I used to be a gardener. My last job was in an organic greenhouse in Eastern Canada. And so I'll be talking more about that later, but I really like this analogy of having these seeds that are dormant, and whenever the right causes and conditions arise, there's a little bit of moisture, there's a little bit of water, then boom, they come out. And so, and this is also basically, like I said, the operating system of the mind, like the background coding that is happening. Now, when we say mental activities bring about consciousness, in the reverse way, when we are at the deepest level of, for example, the meditation, when the mind is in neither perception nor non-perception, or even a little bit before that, we can start to see the active nature of the mind. And so basically how it's just continually arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And these mental activities are actually like the murmuration of the Starlings. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Starlings and the cloud that they make. And these mental activities and consciousness is really similar. And I really like this simile because it explains very well the deepest stages of the meditation. And that's where we might want to call on the media crew. There might be a little bit of a background music. Don't worry, that's okay. It's not breaking the precepts. It's okay. It's an instruction, it's a documentary on how consciousness works. I really like this analogy for how mental activities create consciousness, because we think that consciousness is this cloud of awareness. It's like a thing. And when people are in neither perception or non-perception, for example, and you can probably relate to this, the mind is not fully distracted anymore. And the way that you can tell that the mind is going to be distracted is that there's like a movement. It starts to incline towards something. And it's propelled by previous conditionings, previous momentum in the mind. But this whole cloud of consciousness, at that level, it kind of starts to lose its compactness, and it loses its density, and at some point it starts to make these kind of interesting, like it starts to dissolve kind of thing, because when we let go of all sankharas, of all little mental activities, it's like taking out all the little birds in the cloud, slowly, and then at some point it's barely discernible. You can barely see it. And at some point there's not enough birds in the cloud for you to witness your own consciousness. because consciousness is fully fabricated. It is not eternal, it is not everlasting, and that is the deepest understanding of the Buddha's liberation. That is the very bottom of the dependent origination. And this is the special teaching of the Buddha, basically, that consciousness is not eternal, and it is fabricated, and it comes up through causes and conditions. And when you are in the last stages of this meditation, and you're letting go of any little bit of tiny movement in the mind, at some point there will not be enough movements or enough momentum left through past causes and conditions in the mind for you to be aware of what's going on, for you to really experience anything anymore. And at that point, this is what is called neither perception nor non-perception, because there's not enough mental activity in the mind anymore for it to be really discernible. It's not perception, but there's not no perception either. So it's a really kind of a gray area. And at that level, one can simply, as the new operating system of release, the 6 R's, but at that point it's more just like automatic release, basically, that is being coded at the deepest levels of the psyche, of the mind. And at some point, it all breaks apart. There's no more momentum. And you just have to keep going with faith, with understanding that, this is how it works. Consciousness is fabricated. And when you calm it down, when you calm all of the little mental activities down, then it dissipates. And it does not arise anymore. But this usually lasts not very long. I actually call it the kiss of Nibbana, because it's really quick, and it's usually the mind is just letting go enough. And the thing is, sometimes people are scared of going into Nirodha because they think like, well, I'm just going to stay in there and I'm just not going to come out. But the reality is it's actually quite hard to get in there, and to stay there is even harder. So don't worry, it's not going to happen. And the reality is that the mind will probably just let go of all the last little bits of mental activities, and then just like break open and release completely, and then come back online right away. And then there will be some kind of feeling of relief and joy. And we talk about 3 kinds of contacts that come upon the mind at this point. The contact of voidness. There was no more self. Because when consciousness is the last gate, it is the last bastion of the self, what we think we are. Because that I am, that I awareness, that I am, oh, I'm back. Oh, I got in there. Oh, was that it? Who's thinking that? That is me. That is I. But when that consciousness breaks apart, we understand there was no more I. There was only void. It was sunyata. And then the signless is awareness always needs an object. That is, period. Even if it's awareness itself. It always needs an object to be. It needs an object to be aware of. Because if there's no object, it's not aware. It's not aware of anything. So awareness needs an object. And in Nirodha, in cessation, there is no more objects. That has all gone out. Even awareness itself has completely dissolved. And there is no more object. And there is no more direction. There is no more wish. There is no more. The heart was completely open, and it completely let go of everything. Like my little story when I was at the bottom of the river there. And this is the wise way to experience this. And so consciousness brings about now mind and body. And now we're getting a little bit coarser. And as the Buddha said, without the consciousness before that descends into the womb, then there wouldn't be mind and body, basically. But mind and body and consciousness are interdependent. In other suttas, he says they're like two stacks of kusa grass that are leaning against each other. And if you take one, the other one falls. They have to be together. And so mind and body is like a computer. And so I know there's some tech people in here. And basically the body is the hardware and the mind is the software. So they are interdependent. If you have only the hardware, it's useless. If you have only the software, it's useless too, because you don't have anything to run it on. So you need both. And so in that way, there is mind, and then there is body, and then there is this interflow and this interaction that is possible now. Mind and body brings about the six senses. The six senses bring about sensory contact, and sensory contact brings about all felt experiences. And now at this point, this is just, and that's why I put the little data there, the matrix. Because at this point, if there's no wanting, this is just pure sensory data. This is only light hitting the eye, and there is a knowledge of that. There is a perception of that. And that is not tainted. That can be pure. That can be just seen as what it is. And if there's no craving, if there's no underlying tendencies, then that's what it is. But the problem is that there are underlying tendencies, and there are things that arise from that. And so this is the ground for all that sensory data that is hitting us at the six sense bases all the time. This is what is the ground for, what is the next? For wanting. So this is me and my sister, and she's holding a caterpillar on her finger, and I want to hold it. And you can see I'm suffering. Pouty face. And so this is I just thought that was a great image for wanting and what it brings. And to keep it kind of on a light note, because I like to keep it on a light note. Craving is not like we're all banging our heads against the wall and, just like really suffering all the time. It's just, it's just seeing things like that, how we sometimes we kind of create our own problems, So I see my sister holding that caterpillar, and I'm seeing it with my eyes, and then I want to be, and that's the next level, is that I want to be like my sister, and I want to hold it. And so there comes the trouble there, the suffering. And then the thing is, now while this happens, when we find something that we like, when we find something that we really enjoy or that we look up to, then we start to propagate it. And that might sound familiar. This is actually how I translate proliferation, papancha. Because of my underlying tendencies that I was a gardener before, so my mind goes to propagation, because when you are seedling your trays before making a garden, you need to start your seedlings and all of that. And basically you're thinking of what crops you want to grow and what is productive and what you like to eat perhaps. Then you start to sow all these seeds in your trays and you propagate it. And you don't necessarily plant it in the garden right away. You're just going to have, and this is the image of my propagation room in the greenhouse, basically, where I would just seed these trays, which would become lettuce later and be the crops that we would be harvesting. And so this is the same thing that we do with our attachments. We basically, when we like something or we dislike something, we start to plant these seeds in our minds and we propagate them. So when you go to the movie theater when you're young and you go grab a popcorn and you really enjoy it, and then you're like, all right, I want to do it again. And that's the propagation there. And now that becomes what is called attachment or clinging. So it's moving to that one time when that pleasant feeling arose and then you really liked it, and now, boom, you want to do it again and you're propagating it, and it becomes a coarser attachment. And the next thing that happens is that we create a personality around that. Oh, I'm a movie theater kind of guy. Or I'm a popcorn guy, I'm not a chips guy. Or I like ketchup chips, I don't like salt and vinegar. It's been a really long time I've eaten chips, but yeah, ketchup chips, yeah, there you go. I don't get those too often in Sri Lanka. And this is how we build our personality, and this is why this here can be seen as habitual tendencies, because of course when we start to repeat what we want or what we don't like, then this becomes coarser, this becomes more integrated, and it becomes a habit pattern. It becomes habitual tendencies. And this is both ways. So basically, you're probably familiar that dependent origination can be interpreted in two ways: into the here and now and into many lifetimes. From here, this is kind of where it splits, where you can choose to see it for the here and now as bhava is here the meaning for habitual tendencies. So this is here in this lifetime. You're building up habit patterns that you're going to recreate, and this becomes your identity. Or this can also be understood as this is the identity which is going to transmigrate, basically, also, because it's a bundle, it's a package. And I really like to understand our personality is only a bundle, a package of all of our attachments. What would it be else? We think, well, I'm a movie theater kind of person, or I like these cars or not these cars, or I like these things or not these things, and then we create really all of our personality around that. And the thing is that if it's only based on really, on the Dhamma, on, eating food that you need just so that you can meditate and practice, that wouldn't be bad, but then that's not what we're doing. Well, here, you guys are smart, but we can talk about these things. But usually the way of the world is to create an identity. When you go to high school, for example, if you don't have an identity, you're not cool. And then you have to make it. You have to craft it. I'm not pointing at you because I'm pointing at you because you mentioned that in your talk this morning. So I'm kind of like bridging the two. Yeah, making it even more global, being the cool kids. And what you're not cool when you don't have an identity. You just like you're kind of a loser. Like everybody's like, who's this kid? Like he doesn't know what to do or like what to wear, doesn't have any taste, doesn't have any preferences. Well, and then when you start to pick up on that, then it's not too long that you're like, well, I have to pick up on this thing because I have to make myself an identity because that's how it works here. And then your parents ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow old? It's like, I don't know. What are you talking about? That was my problem. Yeah, like what do you mean? What do I want to be? And then, well, soon enough, life puts you in that position where you have to choose, and you have to, okay, now I'm done high school, so like all this was kind of automatic, and I didn't really have to choose anything. It just happened. Like you just have to go through it. But now after that, you have to make choices. Where do you want to go? And then that's major personality building. Oh, I'm a mechanic. Oh, I'm a surgeon. Oh, I'm a lawyer. Oh, I'm a monk. Hopefully, being a monk means that you've dropped all of that. But yeah, though it can still be a trap. So there is definitely bhava for being a monk. Also, definitely. So it's always there in all of its forms, but fortunately the Buddha's teaching is, if you're in the Sangha, then you're practicing the Buddha's teaching, which leads away from that. So attachments bring about habitual tendencies, and habitual tendencies. Okay, so by the way, this is my sister. And she's fixing our VW van. This was on a trip to the West Coast, because I'm from Quebec. And my parents drove down all the way in California as well, and then went inland. And I wasn't born then, but my sister is believing that she's a mechanic right now, and she's fixing the tire. And I'm assuming that she probably saw my dad kind of like crawling under the car or something, and she's like, yeah, I want to do that too. It looks pretty cool. And I just like this picture because it's just so lovely, but also I think the best way that we can see that and notice that in our own psyche and behavior, and that's how I saw it a lot, was in children. It's really amazing to watch children's behavior, and at a really young age when they're really building their personality and their tastes and all of that. Of course, they have some that is inbuilt. Interestingly enough, like my two nephews, my sister has two boys, and they're both really different from birth, like definitely. And they have their own habitual tendencies that they got from somewhere. If you don't believe in past lives, that's okay. We don't have to go there, but there were definitely two different beings from the beginning. And then when you look at children's mind, they're really trying to interact and to also be like their parents, be like the people that they look up to, that they love. And you'll be able to really easily notice that, like dad's gonna say something and they're gonna say exactly the same thing in exactly the same way, and it's like, well, that was your dad. And the funny part of it is that it's still like that today, and that's who we are. But we've picked up so many of these things, all of our expressions, all of the way that we think, that we interact. We've all seen somebody do it and then mimicked it, like monkey see, monkey do. And it's so simple in reality, but then it also becomes so complex because we accumulate all of these things. And so I just put that little picture of my sister there because I thought, well, children is just like one of these best places where you can notice that the building of the personality. So bhava I also sometimes call personality. This is how identity comes to be, and we identify with all of our attachments, all the things that we like and we don't like. And interestingly enough, when we practice this path, personality also starts to break apart. It starts to lose its consistency. It becomes a lot lighter. And anatta is not just one big major insight that happens at the very end of the path and you're just like, boom, you're liberated. There's no more atta. There's no more self. It is a progressive understanding. It is a gradual training. And one can see their own minds and see that, they're not really getting in their own ways anymore. Life is really simple. They're not really looking for so many things and having so many attachments, and life is just lighter. Things happen, it's like, all right, it's all good. Smiling and just enjoying, and whatever happens, and you can always turn things to on the sunny side, on the funny side, because it's not personal. You don't really care. You don't have an investment in things, and so life becomes a lot lighter. Now, these habitual tendencies bring about blind reactions. I think this is kind of clear because I mentioned it a little bit earlier. But this is when somebody says something you don't like and you just, you lose your mind and you just like slap them, or, do something not nice, say something not very nice to them again. And you're not really mindful at that moment. It's just built in, and it's a habit pattern that is just arising. So these blind reactions, these blind actions result in trouble. So that's the key here, the giveaway. We're going to say something? Okay. And so it's just for our own good, for our well-being, that we become conscious of that, and that we develop a skillful mind state that is more aware of this whole chain of events, of this whole process, how it all happens. And when there's no more self, when there's no more attachments, when there's no more strong wanting or craving, there's no more strong habitual tendencies, then there's a lot of mindfulness, there's a lot of mental clarity. And we take smart decisions, and then the tone of the trouble or the suffering just goes way down, and life is much more enjoyable. And so trouble brings about confidence. And so I think we're quite familiar in life that usually it is through hardship that we discover the path. Usually when you ask someone who's gone forth why did they do that, is because the classic answer is, because I went through a lot of hardship in my life, and then I needed to find a way out, basically. Even my friends, when I went back to Canada, when I went to Nelson, because I used to live in Nelson in the past as well, a little bit, and so I know some people there from my past life. And because it's so cliche that you're going through a hard time, you become a monk, So and my friends just like, look at you, man, you're a Buddhist monk. And I was like, yeah, I guess if you see it like that, that's right. But it doesn't just mean taking on the robes. It just means also what brought you here, what brought you to a retreat center, a retreat environment. What brought me to a retreat environment was also the same thing, was trying to find happiness, trying to find mental clarity, and hearing that this was maybe possible doing that. And because I couldn't find it for myself. I didn't know how it worked, and I was not happy with the way that my life went at that point was just looking for something, looking for an answer. And usually this is how it happens. And now you're wondering why I put my composting toilet as a picture at the trouble level. And so I used to have 25 acres of land in eastern Canada. And I built my own straw bale and clay, basically, ecological, I guess, tiny house. And this was my composting toilet. But that's the analogy that all the trouble that we go through, all the suffering that we go through, if we're smart, if we're wise, we can turn it into compost and have an amazing garden. And the more you have of it, the better your garden is. And so you just have to learn to be a good gardener. Sometimes I give a talk on how, like cultivating your inner garden, and I kind of play with that analogy. So trouble here is, it's not always for the worst. The worst is when you encounter suffering, and you encounter problems and problematic ways of behavior that you have, and you keep repeating them. And you don't learn from it. That's problematic. But when you go into situations where you go through hardship with hard time and you develop samvega, urgency, you develop that will, that wanting to change, that wanting to encounter something new, to find an answer to your questions, to get out of that trouble, then that becomes compost. And this is where saddha arises also. And so I put this little picture of this young Samanera who's just freshly reborn and is just, no, I'm not doing this again. I'm just going forth. This is done with samsara. So confidence arises, and you don't have to become a monk. I just thought this was kind of a cute picture. And this just means this going forth, and in the fruits of the meditative life, the Digha Nikaya number 2. This is like the Buddha would say, and any kind of layperson hears the Buddha's teaching, gains faith in the Dhamma, and goes forth. The same thing goes for anybody who hears the Dhamma and decide to start practicing. It's the same thing, but on a different level, yes. But this is that original step that make us go forward, basically. Now we have faith. We had trouble in the past, and now we're like determined to take action in the better course of action, in the better way. Now we learn the teaching, we learn the practice, and there's a lot of relief that arises. Saddha also basically means that you're encountering the teaching. When we start practicing, then obviously one of the first things that we experience, especially on meditation retreat, is relief or gladness, that we've finally come upon this beautiful teaching that comes to that culminates into release and giving us a little bit more mental clarity, and we start to practice right effort, the path, and this is what arises. And then from relief, what is next? Joy, yes. Now it's tricky, huh? Because it's on the same level. You were sure? Is it left or right? So I put the 2 wings here because joy and letting go, or joy and calm, is what I call the 2 wings to awakening. They are linear, and in the same time, they kind of work together. So when there's relief, there's joy, and that's why we repeat this sequence every morning, because this is how we liberate our minds. This is the sequence. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, basically, when the Buddha says to see Dhamma as Dhamma, like Dhamma principles as Dhamma principles, he mentions the 7 supports of awakening as just the 7 supports of awakening. That's how the mind works. It's not personal. When you 6 are a hindrance, you smile, you bring back the metta again, a wholesome state. You're happy, you're uplifted, and experiencing that joy, then the body calms down, and the body and the mind become at ease, become happy, and the mind becomes collected. This is not something personal. The joy, sometimes people say don't get attached to the joy. Well, the joy is not held on to. It's not a personal thing. When you gladden the mind, it gets uplifted and it calms down and then it becomes collected. That's it. It's just the way the mind works. And that's the same thing for everybody. It's not like, you maybe it's gonna work, or it's gonna work for you. No. It's, across the board, it works. It's just that we have to practice in a certain way and understand things in a certain way for it to work very well and to start to get familiar and get some momentum going. And so as we experience joy and calm settles, then we experience ease, happiness, sukha. And then the mind gets collected. So this is an impersonal process. This is simply how the mind works. And I just like this little deer here and the moon. Just the moon is that mental collectedness, and the deer is just this, harmless being who's just eating grass and basically not harming anything and holding the virtues. And this is how this particular samadhi emerges, is by living a blameless life, by living a beautiful, virtuous life. And then obviously, there is the mental collectedness brings about steadiness of mind. When the mind is collected, the mind is continually aware. It is on-looking, that upekkha. It is seeing things as they really are. Yathā-bhūta-ñāna-dassana. It is discerning continually. And with that comes freedom from agitation. Now I'm going to have to go into the details here and go over that again. But just the English part, that's what made sense in my mind for now. And then I'll just stick to that. And then I just want to say that the word viraga here, because it's really interesting how we can connect the upper part, the 7 supports of awakening, and this section to the section below that we just saw on dependent origination. Viraga, raga is a synonym of tanhā. So tanhā is craving, and raga is a very similar word that is really close to that. It's translated sometimes as passion, but this is just a really old... So by the way, the Pali dictionary that we're still using today is quite old, and it's probably 50 years old at least, and and just so you know, our understanding of Buddhism has changed a lot since then. At that time, it was quite special to just let's say have a monk from Sri Lanka come to the UK and give a Dhamma talk and things like that. But the words have been really heavily influenced by the spiritual context of that particular country and culture of the time, which was a different spiritual tradition. And so we have these words like passion and dispassion, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. They can lead us to the right places, but they're not the all in all, and we shouldn't necessarily put all our chips into these words. Personally, I like to see viraga as freedom from craving, because when the mind is collected and it is discerning and calm and steady, there's no craving there. There's no agitation. It's very, very calm. And this is showing us directly how this works. There's no more craving there. Boom, that link is gone. And so then comes disengagement, which is simply what happens when the mind isn't agitated. As I said earlier, we completely let go because we see that continually impermanence, the flow of our experience, and to let it go is relieving, and we go into the next step. These, by the way, these steps are really close together anyways. Like when one arises, the other one arises. Like pretty much, it's like a bread. So it's all together in the same package, pretty much. And so when there's disengagement, basically there is release at that point too. And the mind is liberated, vimutti. And when the mind is liberated, it is completely still. And that loops back to the analogy of the murmuration of the starlings, where all this is always constantly moving. And as we completely let go of all these mental activities and mental movements, then mind not only does it become really still, and then it actually dissolves into complete liberation. So, on this light note, I'll move forward because it's getting late, and we start a bit later. Now is we're getting close to the quiz, the final exam on dependent origination. So just as when it pours down heavily on the mountaintops, that water rushes down, filling the main valleys and gorges. The main valleys and gorges being full, they fill the streams. The streams being full, they fill the creeks. The creeks being full, they fill the rivers. The rivers being full, they fill the estuaries. And the estuaries being full, they fill the great ocean. In the same way, monks, now this is all together, we're going to recite this. And you can use the sheet. I'll say the first one, lack of discernment brings about, and then you have to say what comes afterwards. In the same way, monks, lack of discernment brings about. Mental activities bring about. Consciousness brings about. Mind and body brings about. The six senses bring about. Contact brings about. Experience brings about. Wanting brings about. Attachment brings about. Habitual tendencies bring about. Blind actions bring about. And then trouble brings about. Confidence brings about. Relief brings about. Joy brings about. Calm brings about. Happiness brings about. Collectedness brings about. Discernment, yeah, there's a couple of choices. That's okay. You still pass. Discernment brings about. Freedom from agitation brings about. Disengagement brings about. And release brings about. So this is the ecosystem of our reality. This is how it all arises and how we can get away from it, the release from it. And I really like that simile of the water rushing down from the mountains and filling up the rivers. And oh, actually, I just remembered that fits my First story. That wasn't even thought of. Great. You thought I was smart, but no. So now that we're familiar with this ecosystem and how the system works, now we can work with it a little bit better and understand how it works and where we can change it, where we can work, and how we can work with it. And all these little images and similes. And be beginners at listening, basically. I really like that final line by Jaya, which is just remembering to take that lightly and be beginners and just have fun. And I would like to end this, one of my student and friend in Canada sent me this poem. And I just thought it was spot on for explaining dependent origination using iPhone technology. So this is called the Apple Store. And it's got a lot of layers to this, so be mindful. So Apple Store. When they offered to transfer my data from one phone to the next, they used the word migrate. First, the devices needed to speak. Both lay side by side in close proximity, as an intimate nesting. Energetically, they called out to each other, and through Bluetooth, a connection was made. My old device conjured a wild, in-motion image of vaguely circular vision of all my data bits and bytes. A four-dimensional QR code of swirling motes, like some vast windstorm on Mars. Roiling as a murmuration, the whole flock spun clockwise. Its bulk of samsaric energy sucking any stragglers in its wake, dragged along through past patterning. A snapshot image of this consciousness, all my little datas, was captured by the new device body, its open conditions set to accept all. These swirlings into its empty shell, and thus was born my new phone. As closely me as the internet knows. All previous preferences primed, all past desires reloaded. Ready to receive new input and synthesize it through the cloudy haze of my old patterning. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.